Okay. And I see Jillian's joining us. I'm pretty sure Elliot was going to be here. I'm sure he will be online shortly, but I will just get going. And welcome everybody. Alana Gustafson, Chair of the Finance Committee. And before we get going, I have to let you know that this evening's meeting is going to be recorded. So please take care that anything you share on your screen will be captured by the recording. And all votes this evening will happen by a roll call vote. And before we start, I just want to make sure that all members are present and can participate remotely via Zoom. So Danielle, you're the first one in my boxes tonight.
Yes.
Okay, and Katie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jillian?
Yes.
Elliot?
Yep.
And we have joining us tonight, Greg Johnson,
Yes.
Town Administrator, Lori Plord, Town Accountant,
Yes.
and Bill Coleman, the Chair of the Bylaw Committee.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So let's jump right in with Bill. And as I had told my committee, but everyone else who might be following along, all of the contents that we will be looking at tonight should be up on our board docs, so you can follow along there if you like. And why don't I open up and share what we're chatting about? Should we start with chapter 38, or you want to go chronological?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Sorry, let me just pull this up here. Why doesn't it open in Word? Well, let's see if that works. Okay, we'll share here. All right. Can everyone see that? So Bill, do you want to just start us off a little bit on what, you know, how this came to you, and you're the sponsor, and anything
Sure.
you think of
Sure
note?
thing. And actually, really the genesis of this came really from the Charter Review Committee, as
Mhm.
opposed to the Bylaw Committee. We have some members on the Charter Review that felt very strongly that financial information should be readily available. And I guess they may have had in the past some difficulty in obtaining it. It may have been during a change of personnel. So it may have been a gap, and I don't know if they didn't realize that or not, but whatever happened was they initially wanted to try to write something into the charter that would be something similar to what is in this bylaw. And we were just concerned, the members were like, we don't really want to put something in that if we don't know how it's going to work, that we'd have to wait 10 years to change it, or go through a difficult process to change it. So I'll just read something off here that under in the charter, in section 4-2, which is power and duties of town administrator, in subsection E, this is what's currently in the charter. To ensure that full and complete records of the financial administrative activities of the town are kept, and to render as often as may be required by the select board, but not less than once a year, a full report of all town administrative operations during the period reported on, which report shall be made available to the public. Now, this is interpreted as the financial report in the town report. But what we have added to it, and obviously it won't be in the charter until it gets voted on and approved, right after that we have, towards the goal of transparent and open government, periodic financial reports shall be made available to the Select Board, Finance Committee, and the public as required by town bylaw. So we've added that in there to sort of have a tie in with this proposed bylaw. And as part of what we had discussed in the Charter Review Committee, that there's no harm in putting this in for it, because it achieves the goal, whether or not the changes to the charter get approved. So I took this then to the bylaw committee, drafted back and forth a little bit, and came up with this, that, we're still tying in that it's the town administrator or whoever he or she designate, provide the quarterly financial report. And we thought quarterly as not to be a burden on the town accountant with it. But what you would see, like in section 4 of that, is that if it becomes a thing where this is pretty easy, it's just a matter of sort of taking a spreadsheet and saving a version or turning it into a PDF or printing a hard copy of it, every 3 months, and it's not that difficult, that this could be a monthly thing. It really just sees how it works, or if a value added of having it monthly as opposed to quarterly could be changed, or they could just provide it as is, because it's basically saying that you can do it more often if you want to, but you just have to do it quarterly for that.
Mhm.
And part of the discussion that the Charter Review Committee had, because a couple individuals kept saying, well, I want financial reports, and sort of saying, what exactly do you want? And I have to say, Peter was very good enough to provide a copy of, what had been provided to the Finance Committee in the past. And we took a look at it and just basically, okay, these are the columns in the table. This is what it was for the general fund. And then as we brought that back, they said, well, there are other accounts that we should be looking at for the enterprise funds. And so we added that as well for it. And what we also then got into a discussion of, well, it's not the certified quarterly report, and it's like, well, no, we don't need to have it certified with everything like closing for that quarter. We just want a snapshot of how things are at basically on the 30th or the 30th of the month for that quarter when it ends from it. So we basically said we distribute it within 2 weeks of the end of the quarter. We sent a version of this to Greg, who I guess had forwarded to Lori, and the feedback that we got was this was doable, that this wasn't going to put an undue burden on that. One other thing that we did have in there, that we wanted to have something at the end of the year, a finalized report. And we said that, when it gets submitted to Department of Revenue, this report, and then we got feedback from Laurie saying that we don't report this report to the Department of Revenue. So at some point, I think, and I'll ask Laurie here, sometime I think you and I could just get together for a few minutes and discuss basically something of nature of like what would be a final report and what could be a triggering mechanism for that for it. So I'll send you an email and hopefully get you on your schedule if that's okay. And I am now retired, so I can kind of meet every day except every other Friday when I babysit my granddaughter. So I can handle that. So maybe I'll send you an email. Maybe we can schedule something for next week if you have time. I don't want to take too much there for you. Okay. For it. So that's really what it came about from with it. So are there any further questions from it?
Well, I will say thanks to the Charter Review and the Bylaw Committee. You seem to both have done a lot of thought at this, and I appreciate getting the feedback from Lori and Greg that this is not too much of an undue burden on our staff. And congratulations on your retirement, Bill. That's wonderful. Any questions about this new bylaw from the committee? Okay. Good. All right. Let's move on and let me just open up.
Well, if we're done with me, I'll sign off. But I'll just say Laurie, I'll send you an email either later tonight or tomorrow, and we can arrange something for meeting.
Hold on,
All right,
before you go, Bill,
okay.
one,
Sure thing.
just, we talked about 31, the amendment to 31 with Justin, but was there anything?
Is this the water
Yes,
resources?
the water resource management. I just wanted to ask you while we had you here, if there was anything in here, here it is, about this bylaw change that you thought was noteworthy or?
we reviewed this with Justin on a couple meetings and kind of worked with trying to make sure it was consistent. One of the things that you kind of note on the earlier versions of it was that it was sort of like a boilerplate kind of take this and fill in the blanks for it. So we just wanted to, as we go through, make sure that we kept referring to the select board as their role of water commissioners, et cetera, like that, that was consistent on it. We went back and forth, just make sure that we understood everything that's going about. We did have some confusions in one section. And I think it was just a matter that there was either too many words or like something was double copied or something was left out, and we realized what it meant, and then we fixed it. So if this hasn't changed from the last time we had reviewed it, then the bylaw committee is good with that. With it, I'd have to actually then check. Ask Greg. Greg, was this a part of what you sent out the other day?
You mean like kind of like the rough draft warrant?
Yeah.
It probably was. I think I
Okay.
sent out the most up to date.
Okay. I can take another look at it and compare the version I had and with what was sent out, just to make sure that nothing has changed or nothing significant had changed with that. I neglected to do that. I was thinking more of this, that this was coming from the DPW as opposed to from us. We sort of then just sort of assisted with making sure it was in the right format for consistency with the rest of the bylaws, and basically just making sure that as we read through it, we could understand it and to go through, and that it made sense as it was written.
Right.
So,
Right. And this is a full pull and replace, so we don't have to do any red line copies or anything to try to explain what's different. It's a kit and caboodle, so that's a little bit easier, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just wanted to check in with that one too. But thank you so much for your input and joining us tonight, and we'll see you around town.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Thanks. Okay, moving along. Our next agenda item is the discussion with Greg and Lori concerning several articles. Let me, I guess let's just go in alpha order, I guess. So let's start with draft control C. Hold on one second. Okay. I basically just wanted to go over most of the ones that, you know, have to do with dollars and cents with Lori here and everything. See if anyone had any questions, and go from there. So I don't know if Greg, if you want to introduce this one. This one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the
Or at least-
majority of the.
But we have some new members, so maybe give up just a little bit.
Oh, okay, not a problem.
Yeah.
So I will say the majority of the articles I think are kind of like usual business there, but there might be some details which I'll try to highlight that have changed. So for this example, this is revolving funds. So this there's some of our services and operations within the town receive revenue directly, and that revenue is meant to then pay for that services. So this is saying that the town will appropriate up to this amount of money that you can see on the spending limit there of the expected amount of revenue we expect to take in. Anything above that goes to free cash. Is that correct, Lori? No. Lori already corrects me. Thank you, Lori. Go ahead.
No, that is regardless of how much money is brought in, that is the spending limit on the fund. If they brought in, let's use the basic Conservation Commission, the spending limit's 25,000. If they wanted to spend more than that within the fiscal year, they would have to then go to the select board and request an increase.
No, I understand. What if we brought in more than 25,000 or some?
If they brought in more, it remains with the fund. It just rolls over from year to year and remains with the fund.
All right, I apologize. Thank you, Lori. That's why Lori's here. So I'm trying to remember what specifically we changed on this from last year, and I think one is the electric vehicle charging stations.
Right.
That's 35,000. That was new last year.
And the Council on Aging.
Council on Aging, and I think we increased that from 75 to 85, but I might be wrong in that.
Correct.
Okay,
Because it goes along with, they had voted long ago to put the funds from the LRTA grant into this fund, and their budget is 85,000.
Yeah.
From the LRTA, that's why they're raising into up to 85,000.
the LRTA is the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, so they give us money to support the Council on Aging vans that drive around town.
And this is a article that happens every ATM.
Every year.
Okay. Are there any questions from the Finance Committee on this article? No? Okay. Excellent. Let's see. All right, so the next one I think is one we talked to Justin about as well, but again, since we had Lori here, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have any additional questions. So this is Control D, the transfer from sewer stabilization fund.
This is last town meeting.
Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, I have so many draft controls.
It's okay.
And my apologies. I was like, wait, I thought D was the, yeah, okay. So my mistake. Hold on, please. Let me get the actual Control D.
I feel the same way as we're going through the budget. Which version are we on?
I know, it's like, and they're all in my, in my drive as Control D. So I grabbed the wrong Control D. Please hold 1 second. And I will make sure the correct one is up. Because I do believe that one is what's on your board docs right now. So that's not very helpful. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. Because what we want to talk about is the budget. And here we are. All right. So this shouldn't be a surprise to any of us right now, but I just wanted to give a moment to Greg if there were any additional things you wanted to say about it at this point, and any discussion that the committee wanted to have about it.
Okay, sure. So the budget is like a story, as I always say it is. And so I submitted the budget officially to the select board in January. And then between that, like 2 weeks later, when I had to when we did the joint budget review, there was a little bit of a change. And then there's a little bit of a change since then. And really those changes occur because of information that I get. So one major change in information I got more recently that is now reflected in this budget proposal that was submitted to the select board for their acceptance is the information we got about Assabet Vocational School, and which was significantly less than what we had projected it was going to be, and they gave us a refund. And then another change is our health insurance rate. So our health insurance rate was expected to be a 6% change from last year, or this year, excuse me, FY22. And then it turns out it's going to be 3.5%. But this is not, I actually am rounding up, so to speak, for health insurance, because we're expecting to hire people, right? So I know the school committee, it wants to hire a superintendent's office. I know the school district wants to hire people. Plus, you kind of have to cushion yourself against unknown claims, and you want to kind of build a healthy amount of health insurance going into the next year. That's just a highlight of a couple of changes. I'm trying to think what other significant changes. And then if you didn't know, a kind of a large change from what my expected budget was going to be, the inclusion of capital pay as you go. So about $200,000 we were going to start contributing towards capital items within the operating fund, which is operating budget, which is this. But then I had $1.5 million of free cash to figure out what to do with, and so that was, you know, advantageous to shift those capital items over to free cash, which then allowed for the use of those operating funds to be, you know, towards other means. And my sort of like underlying approach or goal was to increase the amount of money towards schools, because I had recognized that the schools had met my initial projection back in September, August of a 4% increase over FY22. I wasn't able to get that in the initial budget. As of this budget, that's about I think it's 2.5, but it might be 100th percentile change, but it's 2.5% at least over FY22, which is this year. And I think that's like $530,000. So not the 840, if I'm getting that number right or so, that the school committee had requested, but this is more than half that. I mean, there's a lot of details of the budget, so I'm kind of hitting like way high level stuff here.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second so I can see everybody for discussion. Jillian, go ahead.
Can I make sort of a request if, you know, you're going to put in the cents for some of the line items, to put the cents in for all of them?
Oh, yeah.
Some of them have like points, or just to maybe take it out. It makes it a little hard to read. So I'm like, wait a minute, like $3 billion. Hold on a second.
Yeah, it
This
throws
isn't
it
right.
off. It throws the.
No, you're right. I thank you. This is still the draft, so I appreciate that note. And cause like at the top, yeah, we're gonna change some stuff, guys. But I appreciate that. That's a good catch.
Yeah, it makes it look like our reserve fund is quite big. Any other discussion from members of the finance committee on the budget article?
So I guess I would just,
Go ahead.
I guess I
go
would
ahead,
just
Ken.
add, I guess I would just ask, so what is the percentage increase on the school budget?
I want to say it's. Give me a second. I have it on one of my.
I thought it was
mini-
2.53, but percent.
That sounds right.
And they were
Does that
at
sound-
2, right? So it's 0.53%.
They were
Increase?
originally at 1.5, I think. I got them, but
Oh,
now
Yeah,
on for $530,000, I have it at 2.51. But that
2.51. Okay.
that doesn't.
And Katie, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, so when things come in under budget and there's excess of funds, is it you then, Greg, who decides what where those extra funds are appropriated? Like just the process of where those are distributed?
Good question. Well, the ultimate decision maker is the town, so town meeting appropriates the money. The select board submits all the articles, in particular this article, which incorporates all the departments. So to include the school committee. So I don't determine what they do with that money. I only provide recommendations as to how much money goes to the various functions of government, which you saw in that article.
Yep.
But to your question, let's say health insurance. It came in significantly less, a couple $100,000 less than we thought we were gonna have to spend. That's all good news. I always have like a laundry list of stuff I'm not paying for. So it's not hard for me to find stuff that I would love to put more money to. But when I submit my budget on January 21st, I do that with full confidence that I will be able to provide services going into the next fiscal year based on that budget. Between that time and then I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago for the select board and submitting this article, information may have changed. So maybe there was a bill I didn't know that we had to pay for. For example, we got the Harvey contract for trash recycling contract. I didn't know what that amount was going to be, or we shifted all the money for capital for IT expenses into free cash. But I found out later I need to keep a little bit more into the operating funds because that free cash money was going to pay for servers, not for new laptops. It's kind of a funky game like that. And then whatever's left, because I knew that the school committee was requesting, like I was not meeting their needs. I kind of like shifted that all over there.
I think though, Katie, did you mean like during the year, if um,
And I will recommend it by, I'm sorry, I've left that part out. I don't appropriate and I don't budget. I submit my recommendation to the select board, who either accepts my recommendations or not. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that makes sense. Yes.
but Katie, were you asking like during the year, if the spending is lower than we think it is, what then happens? Like if you're budgeted 200,000 and you only needed to spend 180 in your department? Is that what your question was getting
But
at?
I guess that would be tied to it too. Just, I think I'm just learning the processes of,
Right.
when there's extra cash, where that goes and how soon and how far in advance that gets budgeted for. And,
Right.
yeah.
So just for your knowledge base, if it's within, the same department, then they can spend, if it's in that line item that we appropriate in the same department, they can spend it, if their original budget was like, we're gonna buy this, but we came in under for something else and we decided to buy some, like they can do that within their departments. We can also do certain things called budget transfers between departments, which usually happen toward the end of the fiscal year if needed.
Third quarter, yep, or fourth quarter.
And those need to be approved by the select board and the finance committee. So that's like if we needed money to go from the treasurer collector's office to a police department or something, right? Great.
No, and that
so
happens every year. Happens every year.
Yeah.
Because there's
Okay.
always stuff we're not funding. Like I never know how much to put towards tree maintenance. And we never put enough towards tree maintenance. And then so after the winter time, after all the storms that we have, then we have a better sense of how much tree maintenance we got to do. And so I didn't go to, I went to one conference this year. So like my conference line is bigger than, I'm not spending into that line. So I got some money I can shift over to trees.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
Actually, can I add to that, Alana?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Peter.
So there's the process of budget transfers that can happen in June. There would also, be the process through a special town meeting, we could change the operating budget so that, if we knew the police department was going to way overspend or underspend, we could address that through a special town meeting.
Mhm.
And then the kind of final piece that wasn't addressed was, if there's underspending, that doesn't get taken up by special town meeting or by budget transfers, that's what then flows into free cash.
Mhm.
So,
Yes, that's correct. And special town meeting often, there can be, that is often a place where we need to do a little shifting because Greg doesn't, we don't get the final state budget by the time we have ATM. So
That's right.
unfortunately, there's almost always an issue, good or bad, that needs to get addressed in special town meeting, which is why it often in the past has been in the fall, because we get the information in the summer and then we're like, okay, here's where we need to change.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions about article or draft control D?
I have another process related question.
Sure, go ahead.
So it sounds like a lot of the kind of open items from the original proposal, we now have better information, like the health insurance. Where does it go from here? So is this the draft that ultimately ends up voted on, or are there still more changes to come?
This is it. So 2 weeks ago, I submitted this article and all the articles that had not yet been accepted to the select board to be accepted, and they did accept it. And that's a specific term I'm using because it means it gets incorporated, it gets included in the warrant. But the warrant itself has not been approved. So that will be on, it's on Tuesday. It's like next week's agenda item is to approve the warrant, which will include all these. So there might be another opportunity to change between now and then. This article, I'm not proposing any changes unless I'm forgetting something. I don't think I am. But there's this is it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right, anything else on draft control D? Okay, excellent. Moving on to I think Jay would be the next. The certified free cash appropriation. Let me pull that up. Okay. So Greg, you want to walk us through this a little bit? Because I think this is maybe, I mean, we've had this for a little bit to look at ourselves, but I think it's the first time that you've spoken to us about it.
And there's kind of like a lot to take in. So this is a lot of free cash. It's not the most free cash. My first year, 3 years ago, the town had $2.1 million worth of free cash. And I thought that would never, ever happen again. And I don't think it will, but this was quite surprising. We had hoped that we would get $500,000 worth of free cash. So this is 3 times that amount. Okay, so with that amount of certified free cash, it's kind of like good problems you kind of have to solve, like what you're going to pay for and where you're going to invest. Right off the top, with any free cash, let me back it up. Free cash is that, and Peter alluded to it, it's that amount of money that you've collected but you didn't spend. So it has to be certified. Like you have to submit very detailed reports to the Department of Revenue, and then they are the ones that certify it, and then they tell you how much free cash you have. Okay, so right off the top, I always know I have to do snow and ice. Like we never budget enough. I think our budget right now is $119,000, and then that's okay. But we just know that every year we have to do free cash amount. So that's and that was $300,000 is actually less than what I originally budgeted for. But I think $300,000 I think is spot on, and I hope it's not a penny above it. And then because that's going to pay for this year, like what the winter we're just coming out of, that's paying for this year's snow and ice. And it's mostly personnel and treatment. And then a couple other investments: capital stabilization, general stabilization, OPEB fund. You have to continue to invest into those amounts. We withdrew a significant amount from the general stabilization recently for the feasibility study for the elementary school, so we need to keep plugging that back in. And capital stabilization as well. Fortunately, because of this amount of free cash, I didn't have any recommendation, and the capital planning committee also did not have any recommendation to withdraw or to transfer out of any funds from the capital stabilization, which is good because you got to plug that in until you need it. And then OPEB is other post-employment benefits, so it's like health insurance for retirees. So we have a huge liability on that, and so we have to continue to contribute to that. And then the rest of them come from capital requests that are submitted to myself, and I just forward them straight to the capital planning committee, which is composed of 4 members. They're always looking for a 5th, by the way, so if you have any friends. And then they come up with a recommended capital improvement plan. They provide it to me. I'm pretty much going to say yes. There might be some little odder end thing that I don't understand, or I have to ask them about why. But what's most important to me in their recommended capital improvement plan is their priority list. So if they say one item is above that other priority list, if I have to adjust any of those capital plans because of just information I get about the budget, it's important to me to know like what they want to be important. Here's a good example. Amongst this kind of laundry list of items is the bleachers, the high school bleachers. So we've known for a long time that we need to get new bleachers over there at Alumni Field, but we've never been able to have the means to fund the replacement. But the capital planning committee, in their original projection of only $500,000 of free cash, also recognized they couldn't pay for that, but they did say it was their top priority. So with $1.5 million, and you can kind of see the breakdown of it all. There is $174,000 worth of funding towards that, a means towards that ends, but it doesn't. I have a quote for $1 million for those bleachers, so this is not going to do that, but it's gonna get us somewhere, and that hopefully can be designs or plans or some sort that we've not had in the town before. So this is a good step in the right direction, and it'll also provide us plans that we can then use to advocate for the actual project, or like the and whatever that may look like. I don't know. Like that's a long ways away. And then you can see the rest of the list. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I can talk to these, but again, like these come from departments. Oh, with one exception, which was off my head, which is that one Summer Street reuse. That's $300,000. I have a quote from a demolition and abatement company for the demolition. One Summer Street is the old firehouse. So I did a cold call to this demo company and I said, like, how much would it cost you to take that off my hands? And it was 300 grand, because it does have asbestos. So when I say abatement, I mean that's like the removal of hazardous materials. That's asbestos. Because the town has town departments have no need for that building. There's a reason we're getting out of that building. And I have an understanding that for the economic growth and sort of progress of the community, that's a valuable downtown space. So my current recommendation, and this isn't finalized, but my current recommendation as evidenced through this list is to demolish that building and make it viable for private reuse. So there you go.
Okay. Elliot, I see your hand up. Go ahead. You're muted. Oh, there you go. No, don't think
I don't hear you, Elliot.
It doesn't say muted though.
No. Is your headphone on, or you're talking to your mic, but your mic is up?
Is that any better?
Oh, there you go.
Weird. I guess my other mic's not working. Oh yeah, it was up here. On that list, is there anything that is being pulled forward to earlier than is necessary?
I think I understand your question. I mean, that's kind of subjective. So you could say that we don't need to put money towards bleachers.
Well,
right
I mean,
now.
like, let's say something is typically done every like 10 years, and this is like year 8 or something. I'm just curious.
Okay, that's a good question. Let me look. No. So the capital planning committee has a long list of items that have been submitted by the various departments. Not only departments, but like community needs. Like we know there's other items out there. But no, these are needed. I mean, like another
So then
one.
the follow-up would be,
Yeah.
do you know what that backlog would be of what the total value of items submitted? That
I don't know.
would be on that
No.
list?
No, I don't. I mean, they might have presented it when they gave the joint budget review back in February. So if I look back at what they presented, they might include it there. But no, it's a list. It's a significant list.
Okay, thanks.
I have one question, Greg. I feel like on an earlier version of, and I don't know that it was free cash or it was another one. I feel like the website upgrade was like 8,000 or something. There was a much smaller number. Was that just like
There's two different.
get it started, or am I thinking of something else?
No, that's a good question. Okay, so everything is so complicated. So you're not wrong to be confused, because it is a lot. It's a lot. Okay, so there's kind of like two websites.
Okay.
Then I think both of them should be of particular interest to this body. One is for a new website to the town. So we've had like a private, webmaster, and he's fine. It's fine. But Civic Plus is the standard model that a lot of towns use, and it's a good model, and it provides a lot more editor
Usability for us, as opposed to sending it to
yeah
the webmaster all the time saying, can you please post this?
Yeah.
Like we'll be able to do a lot of that ourselves.
Yep, exactly. I think we have a good website. Compared to a lot of towns, I think we have like a pretty good website. We keep it pretty well updated, but we can do better. So,
Yeah.
but when I was first proposing that we were going to pay for it in yearly pay, like let's say it was like a 30.
Okay.
I can't remember how much it was. It was like $36,000 all up front, and then I have 35 here, and then and so I was going to pay like, I think you were right. I think it was like 8 or 10. I can't remember how much it was each year.
Yeah.
But that was one. And then because of the amount of free cash, I was able to shift that. So now I don't have to pay for that operating fund going forward.
Okay.
The other website though is I can't remember what the proper terminology is, but let's say it's like a new module that's going to go on to our ClearGov.
Oh, the
web
ClearGov,
page.
right. You have to upgrade. We're choosing to upgrade or something, the module.
It's like a new, Lori can do a lot better job describing it, but it's like a budgeting, tool
Mhm.
on via ClearGov. so ClearGov is our budget transparency budget transparency page. I can't remember how it's described, but if you go to our town's website, and a lot of towns and school districts, they use this to be able to kind of towards the same kind of goal. My understanding, the same goal of that proposed bylaw is just a little bit more transparency, as cliche as that sounds like. But it's meant to sort of give a different perspective to taxpayers. So we use ClearGov for that, and we've had it for many years. But this is a pretty special budgeting tool that we would like to be able to incorporate, and that's coming up. That's another sort of webpage upgrade that
Okay.
we're doing.
And then my only other question is, our OPEB debt, or I don't know what they call it, because it's like coming debt. It's not
Like
what's the term?
liability. It's a-
Legal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is significant,
Yep.
and we're putting 25,000 into it, which seems
Not enough.
laughable. But I assume that is because we just have to sort of look like we're doing something. But like, it's really
yeah.
pretty.
You're kind of
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
you're kind of right. So our auditors always say you got to put something in there.
Right.
And there's, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't remember
I was
what
gonna
the-
say, like, how far out is that huge amount that you
I don't-
see, like on our audit report? It's millions and millions of dollars.
Yes,
So
but
like,
most towns are about to where we are. So
no,
they
I
don't-
know this is totally normal, and this is like, everyone's in this boat.
Yeah.
But my question is, when does that bill come due? Or
No,
are
that's
we all hoping something's gonna change and like the state or the feds are gonna bail everyone out because nobody has this money?
so both. So
Okay.
so it is coming due. Off the top of my head, I apologize. I don't know what that is. And so we meaning starting with my office does need to think about a way to skin that cat. And a couple of towns and cities have come creative ways, negotiate with unions, which is not pleasant, or sort of I don't know. There's a number of ways that some towns and some cities have been able to crack that nut.
Okay.
Or they just make the sacrifice of deciding that's where they're going to put all their investments in. So if you did this a majority, let's just say of the thought exercise, that instead of $1.5 million kind of going across the board and paying for all these odds and ends, or let's say we decided not to put $114,000 into roads and sidewalks to supplement our chapter 90,
Right.
chapter 90, which is like the state money. Let's say we decide to put that towards OPEB. So some towns and cities have made those similar choices. That's not what I'm recommending. To go to your other part of your question is to like, when's that? So this is considered an unfunded mandate, meaning like it was a law that came down that towns and cities had to abide by, but it didn't come with funding.
Mhm.
So some people say that the state's going to relook at that and sort of bail out all the towns and cities. But some people say that because some towns and cities have already have a plan in place or are
Right.
already nearly fully funded, then the state as a whole is like, that wouldn't be very fair to those towns and cities that have already figured this out. So it's not there's no good answer. I'm not sure what the answer is right now.
But I had some idea. We are currently also making up a deficit in the pension fund that is supposed to be fully paid off by 2030 or so. And then we would have some extra money from that at least, in some prior discussion 5-10 years ago, the idea was we could rededicate that towards OPEB.
That sounds nice. Lori, do you have what's your thoughts on that?
It's my understanding, just like Peter said, is that once our deficit in the pension fund is paid off, then we can put that towards OPEB.
Okay.
Trying
And
to
that's
fund-
because
fund-
pensions
fully
are a
fund
thing of the
OPEB.
past? Like, we're not paying out pensions anymore? Is that why that?
No, we are.
No,
We are.
both of these things aren't really an unfunded mandate. We incurred this liability through union contracts and
Mhm.
never funded it.
Right.
we would pay the current year's obligation as we went and never recognized that the obligation is going to skyrocket in the future. So
Mhm.
the pension liability is we have to start putting more money in so that, the pension fund doesn't go broke in 50 years when Maynard doesn't have enough money to pay its pension. And OPEB is similar. We've made promises to provide health insurance to retirees, and we've never funded that. So this is, to put money aside to
Right.
recognize a future liability for stuff we're going to owe to people currently working for the town. So,
Okay.
um,
And this continues on basically like in perpetuity, or is there certain parts of this that are sort of going down because we no longer provide like pensions for everybody? Or like, have we changed our,
No, we do.
we still do. So if you work
Mhm.
for the town now,
Yeah.
you're still given, okay, so this is
But-
a perpetual problem or a,
yeah, but
Like
my
it-
understanding is the pension stuff is fixed, that our current payments into the pension fund should fully cover, future or people that are currently in the system that will retire. And then it's, people that were in the system 20 years ago that we never fully funded,
okay,
that's what we're making up for with the pension.
Mhm.
I'm less clear on the OPEB, but,
okay.
um,
Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, for note taking, what does OPEB stand for?
Other
tried-
post-employment benefits.
Ah, B. Okay, thank you.
And by
Good
the way, I
question.
just did a quick Google and on the state's website, it shows that our total OPEB liability is $70 million.
Ah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's not a small issue.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on, yeah,
Do you
go
know
ahead,
how
Peter.
much that's going up
Oh.
by year?
Don't know.
Because the top one will probably grow faster if it's underfunded.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't,
We'd have
this
to-
is, yeah,
It's
our
probably
audit
something we're
really get into
looking
It's
it.
into.
probably in our audit. If we look in our audit reports from previous years, we could estimate that. Because
Yep.
it's always in the audit report.
Yep.
Go ahead, Peter.
and I'm sorry if I've missed the email on this, but did we get, some kind of accounting of where the 1.53 million free cash came from?
Yeah, I'm gonna Lori, go give your
All
speech.
right, I don't have the numbers in front of me for this meeting. I did for sub-budget committee. It has to do with bringing in, I think we brought in roughly $500,000 more in local receipts than we had budgeted. Brought in extra money in local aid. We brought in extra money in tax title, rollback taxes. There was one other thing. So all of those plus spending less, we didn't fully spend our budget. So all of those different things together is what contributed to bringing in the 1.5 million.
I'm sorry, is there a document? I don't remember seeing it in budget subcommittee either.
No, I basically had it written down. I mean, I don't have a document. I just kind of jotted down the different things that contributed to it.
We did talk about it at budget.
Yeah, we did talk about it.
Can we get a document that, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be down to the penny, every.
I was gonna say, I don't have
$3
anything
of
that
the
exactly comes up to it. I mean, there's many different things that come into play when it comes to free cash. Your receivables come into play. It depends on how your receivables are versus last year's receivables. It's not just expenditures and revenues. Your overlay
what-
is part of
mean,
it.
Whatever it is, there's some calculation that comes up to the 1.533. And I
Yeah,
would like, I want to see that.
well, that's
I think
basically
that
your free
gets
cash
everything done.
calculation that you get from the DOR comes down to that exact number.
Can you give that,
Mhm.
is that a report? Like, do you have that in a sheet, Lori?
Actually, yeah, that was sent out to everyone. I can send it
That's
out.
just a letter that says this is the amount.
What was that?
Are you saying that you're just going to send me the letter that says this is the amount from the state?
Well, it shows how your designated fund balance plus this minus this got to that. I mean, but like I said, it's not an exact science of, okay, we brought in this much more revenue and we spent this much less. That's a big contributor, but it also takes into consideration your receivable balances and how they change over the years.
Mhm.
Because they minus your receivables from your undesignated fund balance. So that comes into play too. I mean, I can write up the things that we talked about at sub-budget committee. I don't think you were there that night that we discussed it, to the different contributors, but it's not
in
exact.
other
down to the
years-
penny.
Okay, it does, again, it doesn't need to be down to the penny, but I think it is useful to have a document
Hmm.
that says, okay, it's, 500,000 of excess new growth, 200 or 20,000 of, police overtime underspending, whatever the numbers are that make up the majority of that 1.5 million.
Mhm.
I think that's a useful document that,
Right.
we've definitely had in prior years, and I think is good that we're aware of it.
Right, you also have to take into play encumbrance money from last year that wasn't spent, how much was encumbered this year, all those different things come into play.
Which is fine, then,
Mhm.
we should just play them out in the document.
Mhm.
But, it's not, it's not like we make up the number. So the number came from somewhere. I
Right.
would like to see the calculation of the number.
Mhm.
So, and then secondly, the question, is any of the free cash because we were reimbursed by the state for the feasibility study or anything to do with Green Meadow?
No,
We
that's
haven't
coming
gotten
into
any
play
money
for
for that
next
yet?
year. We're just getting feasibility study back, money from MSBA for the feasibility study this fiscal year.
Because we did talk about when we took it out of general stabilization that we're going to do, as much as possible, a 1-for-1 repayment back to general stabilization.
Mhm.
So I don't want to get that lost in, it just showing up in free cash or something.
Yeah.
No, what's going to happen is I am keeping track of it. It is going to need to go into the general fund. It will fall to free cash, and then from there we can allocate it into the general stabilization fund.
Right. But
Mhm.
that's what we said we were going to do, when we did the appropriation for the feasibility. So I just want to make sure that's on, in people's memories. Maybe we can't do it, but that's what we said we were going to do. So,
That's
okay,
still my
thank you.
intention.
Lori, I just emailed you the 2019, I think it was, free cash analysis. That is, I think, what the document that Peter would like to sort of have remade. So do you have an idea of what it is, he's
Thanks, Lauren.
any other questions on the free cash article? Okay. Moving along. Let's go to draft control. P, this is another.
Oh,
Yep.
wait, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I had one more question I forgot to ask.
Oh, go for it.
Greg, I think it's Guilfoyle website, the Maynard, the townadministrator.org one.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? And that's not part of the website you're talking about redoing,
No, that's
but
different.
is that
Kevin Sweet started
in
that.
your
That comes
budget
out of,
or?
yeah, that comes out of the town administrator's budget. I think that's out of, well, I don't want to missay what the name of the accountant is, but that's a third third website.
And I know we've had it for a while, but and just what's the reasoning why we have that plus the official one, or what's?
No, good question. So I can't explain why it was initially. It was Kevin Sweet implemented it,
Yeah.
and I think it was. I mean, my guess is that it was meant for another avenue of outreach, just to have another venue to tell people. I was confused about it. I still am a little confused about it. I think having one website for the good people of Maynard to go to find out about Maynard is the way to go. But what we then found is that it was useful in other ways. So we can update it similar to the notion of Civic Plus, instantaneously, as opposed to going through the webmaster, because I have the rights to edit it. So Megan Zamudo, who's the assistant town administrator, is she's my PR, and she goes in there to do the COVID page, which is kind of instrumental, and then other projects that might come up. So that's really where we've been using it. So we might blast something in there as like a message, but generally I'm going to put it also on the main website. But it's these sort of like special projects that we can update more regularly that goes on that other page. So it's valuable in that end. Will I keep it if we implement a Civic Plus? Maybe I won't.
Which would seem to make sense, but okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me bring this up for everyone for a minute here before discussion. This is the salary administration plan. Again, this is one that we need to pass every ATM, pretty sure. And is there anything?
It's
I mean, you highlighted the part-time minimum wage increase. Everything else is the same.
That's it. Yep.
All right.
We have a lot of contracts, so the majority of our salary admin comes out of our contracts.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions on the salary plan? Okay. Excellent. Moving right along. Let's go to T, which is the ambulance receipts. Again, this is a pretty standard one, but just because I had our good town accountant and
did you talk
sorry,
to the
what?
chief? Did you bring in chief for this one?
We actually had chief. No, we did not talk to the fire chief. We talked to the police chief. I think he's the only one that we haven't had in.
Well, he was out for medical for a while, so that's
yeah.
But so this is, you're right, this comes up every year. Not every year, but like in the last number of years it has. And so it is revenue that we get from ambulance. And then it's been going to pay for and the ambulance. So we've been sort of like doing a lease purchase agreement for an ambulance. Right. But there's another article, right? Isn't there another article? I'm not looking at the whole list, but there's another article for a fire truck.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is like what is this one? The third of 5 of the 5th year of this $70,000 to go towards that. But so we're gonna do. You'll see this article 2 more times.
Okay. And the ambulance receipts, is that one of those accounts where, you know, does that just go to general? Like we could use ambulance receipts for anything we wanted, or it's a restricted one?
No,
It's
we
a
have
reserve fund.
It is. Okay.
But we have been using in the past, we had been using the ambulance receipts to supplement public safety funds. Like, but I have too many needs for those ambulance receipts, like an ambulance and a fire truck. So it's a little more straightforward now.
Okay. All right. And then, so this one, the draft control U is a little bit of a different one. This is not one we normally get. I mean, not that we don't ever, but I just want to give you a chance to explain what happened that we need this.
So this is not so atypical, to your point, Alana. I think that's what you're trying to say. Like, this is not unheard of, but admittedly, I haven't had an unpaid bill in the last 3 years. So but sometimes they do it every year. But it's you try to sort of have the correct business operations in place that this doesn't come up. So whenever you have a bill from the prior year fiscal year, so you have to pay for that bill, and you've already closed out that fiscal year, so you have to appropriate it from the current fiscal year. In this case, we're fortunate enough, we have plenty of free cash that it wasn't so detrimental to transfer this amount. So what I did though, what you would have to sort of know is the difference between my free cash recommendations from like a month ago to what you see now, which includes that, I think it's $25,000. And I took that from the bleachers. So the bleachers had $200,000 going towards it, but I don't know how much bleachers plans are. So it was kind of like it was an unknown risk if I drew down from that recommended allocation to pay for this. Oh, and then how this came about, that was your question. So I mean, the DPW probably has I think I'm going to guess the DPW has the most bills. So this is admittedly, this is irregular. Wheeler Brader that's what this bill is paying for. So Wheeler Brader is where your trash goes. So it's collected by Harvey and then it goes out to wherever Wheeler Brader is. And that's the incinerator. So us and a ton of other towns all take their stuff there and we get the bills from it. I don't know why. I don't know this exact circumstances. I definitely inquired and I definitely did like an informal investigation as to how this happened, because no one's proud of having a prior bills go to town meeting. It does happen though. So I addressed it with Public Works.
And the reason that this is not just in the free cash is because when you're paying a bill from a previous year, it has to be its own vote.
Yeah.
Is that
And I
correct?
think you need 4/5 to approve. It's a heavy one. Yeah. I think
Okay.
you need 4/5 town meeting approval to pay. Is it 2/3 or 4/5? I don't know, but it's
It's
more than
4/5.
4/5.
Okay.
I mean of town meeting voters. That's what I meant by that. So you need more than a simple majority.
Mhm. Any other questions on this one? Okay,
Yeah.
go for it.
So I'm sorry, I'm looking for a
Yep.
little more explanation on how it happened.
I mean, without going into a certain level of personal matters, I will say that it was addressed at the department level. I don't know. I kind of want to.
All right, I get that.
there
I know
was
it's
a-
public
there
meeting, and I
was-
don't want to.
There was
So
bills.
there was a
missed.
screw up by somebody? You don't have to get into who it was, but I mean, our Wheeler Brader contract, as I recall, I don't know, what is it, 800,000 or something? Still seems like, I mean, as I recall looking at the documentation on this, isn't it like it was June invoices, and wouldn't we notice that June invoices were missing, or?
Yes. I mean, I can't deny that this should have been caught. I mean, this is and admittedly it's Wheeler Brader, right? So we pay it twice a month. So it should have been a regular procedure, and this wasn't. I did an informal investigation and I addressed it with the department. I'm really hesitant to kind of go. The buck stops here, Peter. I mean, like if you're gonna get
No,
mad,
I
get
get
mad
that,
at me
and it's not like I want to hang out somebody to dry on it, but I guess I kind of want to know, what's changed that it's not going to happen again. Maybe
Sure.
that's the way to phrase it, or is that?
I asked the same
or-
question. Right. So I did ask the same question and of that department head, and that department head went into a certain amount of detail about how they were going to be better and not better, like they were going to be better about making sure their operations were sound and they were not going to have this happen again. I can't guarantee, neither could the department guarantee that there wasn't going to be another unpaid bill. Sometimes that happens, personnel turnovers, etc. But this is one of those things that it was quite surprising that this slipped through the cracks, and no one would deny that. Like no one's proud of this.
And then I'm not, I can't say I'm super familiar with closing on it for a municipal finance, but I'm trying to juxtapose the fact that we were, fairly late closing FY21 and submitting for free cash, with the fact that this still comes in as a prior fiscal year bill. And, was it that we didn't know about it for so long, or is it that, even if we found out about it in September, at that point, it was too late to add it to FY21 as an encumbrance or something?
No, it was the
guess-
latter. So like if it was a bill from the prior year, and you couldn't have a reasonable justification why you could use the current fiscal year appropriation to pay for that, then it's a prior year bill. So if it's whether it's September or otherwise, you're not wrong to think that there might be a connection between our frankly late cash reconciliation. This is not related to that. This was at the department level, and it was just not processed.
Us being so late doing it didn't give us an opportunity to then add it to FY21 and not treat it as prior year?
I don't think so.
Or
Lori, what do you think?
Is that
I don't,
not a possible, this is.
I wasn't aware of the bill until after FY21 was
Yeah.
closed. And that's
Right.
why it wasn't addressed.
And then, on the flip side to this is, if we did know it and had about it and, had included it, we would have just had 25,000 less in free cash.
right.
Is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not gonna lie, we had the good fortune of having a significant amount of free cash that this is relatively like low, not really detrimental to us.
Okay, thank you.
Those good questions. Anything else on this particular one? Okay. I'm gonna just go backwards in the alphabet a little bit for the one that Greg had talked about with regards to ambulance receipts, the other one, which is Control N. So this is the one for the pumper truck.
Pumper. Yeah. Two types of fire trucks, as my 3-year-old will remind me. So this is a pumper truck, and they're not cheap. So this, but our current one is 21 years old. As Chief wrote the sponsor comments, you can see at the bottom there.
Mhm.
And so it's just we got to replace it. Those are workhorses. The fire trucks that we have, you can see them out rolling every day. So we need to got to stay on top of it.
And so what happens because this is a 7-year and we're still paying off we have a couple more years on the
true.
ambulance.
It's true.
What happens if ambulance receipts do not equal these debts?
Then
next
I need
year?
to pay this. I still got to pay this bill.
Right.
So whether that comes out of the operating fund, that's probably what I would do. I would find a way out of the operating fund. I wouldn't have an expectation to pay for it out of free cash. I would do operating.
And do we have I know ambulance receipts have been up. Last time we did talk to the chief, he was saying there have been more
Right.
calls and things.
That's true.
Is there concern that this might be an overreach, 118 for 7 years?
No, I had the exact
Or-
same question. When
Okay.
Chief said that he could pay for a fire truck and an ambulance out of the same, I was like, yeah, I need to see the numbers
Okay,
because it's a lot. It's like it's an odd thing to sort of like gamble with how many ambulance calls you're going to need.
it's a little morbid, but
Yeah.
we'll take
So
it.
you don't want ambulance receipts, I guess.
Right.
But anyways, but we do. And so Lori and I we looked at the numbers and you could see the trend for better or for worse. You could see the trend and with a good amount of confidence. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have given him the green light on this. We would have just figured it out through the operating fund. But
Mhm.
or even like a proportion of the operating fund just to supplement this, which was your question. Like that, if that happens, then we'll do that. Either way, we need a new truck. So,
Mhm.
but no, the numbers do match. The numbers do shake out.
And not just because we have a COVID bump.
No, that's a good
Actually,
question.
we might have been a COVID,
That
like
COVID decline.
up for COVID, down for everything else. So maybe it was kind of you know what I mean?
Actually,
Like
you're
people were
good.
staying home and so maybe they weren't injuring themselves, et cetera, but they were calling the ambulance for COVID. It's probably kind of a wash.
Actually, it was weird. You're not wrong. I had the same questions because I didn't know what to expect. So,
Okay.
people were home, so there was injuries from home. minor things, a lot of people doing DIY these days. So like
Yeah.
that was happening. But then COVID numbers were there. But no, it wasn't like a significant
Okay.
uptick.
Okay. So the estimating that you were doing, basically my point is, it wasn't based just on a COVID
No.
year.
No, I consider the last 2 years to be weird.
Okay.
Like in general, like it was hard to budget at all based on any projections, trends from the last 2 years. In
Right.
fact, like in some cases we didn't. So if you unless certain sort of like known changes, like meals tax, like now it's pretty well accepted that we're going to continue to do outdoor seating, which is good. But what's weird about that is now it's going to be in addition to indoor seating. So our meals tax projections, you try to capture both. So it's just tricky.
Okay.
But a couple of, speaking of ambulance, we have, it's not called the View anymore. What's it called? The Halstead? I can't remember, but it's behind
Yeah.
Market Basket.
Market basket.
And that's a couple hundred units. Then you have Camilla Gardens next to that. That's a couple hundred units. Plus the shopping center in general. And you'll see the trucks and ambulances go down there fairly amount. We have an aging population, which is for better or for worse. So the trend is there. Like there's
Okay.
a certain amount of confidence.
Okay. Good. Any other questions on this draft control?
Not really a question.
Okay.
But did want to kind of throw out the idea, and I don't know what we do with it because there's money's already spoken for with equipment. But I mean, to me, and I guess correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but it seems like it's not inappropriate that we would use the ambulance receipts fund to fund the fire department.
Yeah,
the staff.
we have been doing.
Right, we have been, and we're not doing it now because we have other needs for the money, I guess.
Right.
But
Right.
It is the fire department staff that mans the ambulance and everything, right? So,
Right. Correct.
I don't. At some level, it's nice that we get the capital equipment, but we should be recognizing, a significant role of the fire department staff is to man the ambulance, and we
Yep.
should be looking for reimbursement from the ambulance receipts. And if we didn't run an ambulance service, we would have a smaller fire department, and we should.
Well, we'd have to contract out, frankly. We'd have to contract, which we already do for advanced life support. So we would have to, like the 911 calls come no matter what. I know it's obvious, but yeah.
But so anyway, I guess I'm just kind of noting that it's been portrayed as it was some inappropriate drain on the ambulance receipts fund to fund the fire department, and I guess I don't agree with that. And if we have equipment needs, I guess we're using it for that. But it seems appropriate to me that we would expect ambulance receipts to pay for part of the staff that mans the ambulance.
I agree.
So, okay, that's all I had to say there.
All right. Anyone else on this one? Okay. Then the other, I think this was the last one. Other than I do want to talk about some of the citizen petitions with you too, Greg, just because of some of the Lisa Mead
Sure.
information, but
Sure.
This one.
So this
I
is
believe-
similar to one we did last annual town meeting, or the last special
I
town
think it
meeting.
was special.
So
Right.
right, so there was a premium. This is like not an everyday terminology, and so the bottom, by the way, is key. If you read that sponsor comments, it's going to do a better job explaining than I'm about to. So basically, there's I'm getting cross-eyed just reading all this stuff. I'm not a finance. That's not my background. But this is basically there was a return on the bonds that we have for $19,000, which may sound like short money, but it's still a good amount of money to get appropriated. So we're just looking to capture that return on the premium.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up to see if there was any other questions regarding this from the FinCom for Lori, or any understanding of the the money moving. No. Okay. All right. Do we have, anyone on the finance committee have any other questions for Lori while she's here with regards to anything that's on these articles for annual town meeting? No? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Lori, tonight. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I did want to note that first article, we were talking about the bylaw for what appears to be an expenditure report that Bill Coleman
Yeah.
was looking for. I have already started uploading those to the accountant website. Well, the accountant page on the website.
Oh, okay, great.
We did that for March because by the way that section 2 reads, it's exactly what an expenditure report is that I've been providing to the sub-budget committee and to the FinCom on a monthly basis.
Right.
So we did already start uploading those.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right. Yep, go ahead.
Can I'm sorry, Lori, if you're trying to get off. I don't
That's okay.
know the on some of the citizen petition stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a question about it's not legality, but the form of the citizen's petition, and yes, I looked at them very briefly, but I'm immediately noting there is no funding.
Yeah, that's why I'd like to keep Lori on for this conversation.
Oh,
about
sure.
petitions,
I'll stay on.
because-
Well, I'm wondering, if she's relevant for that.
Absolutely.
Or she gets off.
She's not
sorry.
a legal expert, but she can talk money.
Okay.
So let's look at those ones. Let me just committee discussion. Yeah, we're fine on the agenda. Let's look at those ones first then. That would be draft control. AA and BB, I think, are the ones that this is gonna pertain to. So let me bring that up. If you have any say on which one we need to look at first or second, Greg, let me know. But
No, do you also want to do, if I'm looking at the same thing you are? Oh, sorry, you have it up. So this is, because I was also going to say, there's the other one about the climate declaration, but that's not the same sort of.
yeah, that I don't think that one has a real financial
No, it's advisory.
yeah aspect to it. So let's go for these
Right.
ones first.
So this wording is according to the petitioner, who I can see is here this evening, and Becky Mosca had coordinated the wording of this to make sure it matched the petition language onto the warrant. So I don't know if you have that exact final version. You probably do, but this looks to be about it.
Did we get sponsor comments yet?
I'm here. I could provide sponsor comments, but if you want in written form, I can get those to you tomorrow.
We definitely need it all written. Yep.
Okay.
So, Greg, do you want to, I know you had sent an email with some notes from Lisa Mead and about concerning, I think this one and the other one, in terms of where they come in the
That's right.
warrant and what that means. Do you want
That's
to
right.
just touch
So-
on that for us?
So town council, who's Lisa Mead, that's who you're referring to. She's
Yes,
she's
sorry.
no, it's all good. So town council means our attorney. So she reviewed these petitions. Her reaction was a couple of things, but one was that they were acceptable to be on the article, or to be accepted as articles to be included onto the warrant, which is what the select board will do. The select board will just accept them and they'll go onto the warrant. So this is an example of a proposed appropriation. If this appropriation is submitted before the general fund appropriation, which you had as Control D, but I don't know where it's all going to line up, because I I rely on the town moderator to dictate
Right.
that. Especially in the last couple of years, the town moderator has been doing a lot of consent agenda, so he might rearrange a lot of the sequence of the articles. But I provided him the advice that I got from town council. And so if it goes before, then this, and if it's approved, so let's say this control AA goes to town meeting, and town meeting votes in favor of this appropriation. Then when it gets to the general fund, you have to adjust the general fund to meet the requirements of that appropriation. And so to do that, to meet that appropriation, it's a budget. So you either have to reduce expenditures in other accounts to meet that expenditure, or increase your revenue, which is that's a challenge, because your revenue is based on projections that have already been set, that was incorporated, that was considered when I submitted a balanced budget in the first place. So if you're going to increase revenue, you have to increase your tax collection. And right now we have already a 2.5% and new growth over this current fiscal year is my projection.
So it would have to come to raise revenue in the moment at town meeting would have to be an override.
Potentially. I don't
For
know if it's
120,000.
potentially, but I don't know if it's that direct. So an override, for the people who don't know what an override means, there's a number of ways that you can collect taxes above what's called Proposition 2.5, which was set in place however many years ago, that said that towns and cities could no longer subjectively, like independently determine how much their tax collection they would be over the current fiscal year into the next fiscal year. The state law says it's going to be at 2.5% of your collected taxes in the current fiscal year plus any new growth. And then if you want to go above that, then you have to do one of three things. You have to do what's called an operational override, which means you're going to permanently increase the tax collection over that 2.5%. You can do a debt exclusion, which is not permanent, but in most cases, long-term revenue collection over Prop 2.5, but it's for a specific capital project. And then you could do a capital overlay. I'm trying to remember the correct terminology, but I think it's called a capital overlay. So it's for just general capital needs, not necessarily tied to one project. And that can also artificially increase your revenue. But what you're referring to is the override. So that might be a possibility. I didn't get into that level of detail and how that would pay out. Any of those three options, I believe, yeah, and or certainly for the debt exclusion and override does require a ballot measure as well. So you have to do both the town meeting vote and it doesn't matter the order. Sometimes you do debt exclusion then town meeting. Sometimes you do the vote, whatever,
Right.
But you have to do both.
So what happens on the opposite, that this comes up after we do the general fund appropriation? Seems the more likely scenario.
Yeah. I don't recall. I have to remind myself what I wrote in my email on Friday afternoon. So
Wait, did we get this email, Alana?
I'm
I sent
looking
it to
right
my-
now.
I
gonna
sent
try
it
to
to the
find it.
board and I sent it to Alana, but if you give me 2 seconds, I can find it.
Yeah, I thought
They
I
would have to
forwarded
find
it,
a
but
funding source.
I'm sorry, Lori?
They would have to find a funding source. They would have to designate a
Right, but-
funding source if we've already
But there is
voted
no
budget.
funding source. We've
Huh?
spent all the money. There is no funding source.
Right. Well, reserves or,
So I've got to imagine I'm not the only one that's confused about what these citizens petitions will precisely do. So it would be helpful, I'm trying to understand what passage of these petitions would do.
It would require us to make changes on the floor to the budget.
Mhm.
So
If they pass before the budget, you mean?
But in either instance, because even if it's after, so let's say it's after, then you've already appropriated $47.9 million. So you're already agreeing you're not going to increase taxes to that. You will have to cut. So the general fund says we're agreeing to take this much money out from taxes and other revenue sources, $47.9 million. And it's going to pay for all these, whatever, 7 functions. If that approves, and then afterwards you have this is an example of an appropriation, then you're not saying, this is my understanding, but I'm not a legal expert, and this doesn't come up very often. So I apologize for my lack of familiarity in how this works. But my understanding, based on a phone call I had with Lisa Mead last week, if it's after general fund, then you're not going to increase your revenue. You're just going to cut from other budgets. I think that's right.
Hold on, Greg. So I have that email and I just forwarded it to FinCom. You said that if the petition article for appropriation follows the general fund article, then approval of the petition article would require a cut to the budget or a raise of revenue to fund that additional appropriation. If before the general fund,
Okay,
then we would have to find the money in the general fund.
right, because you hadn't agreed to how much you're going to collect in revenue by that point. Sorry for not being clear, but I think it's about the revenue. So if you've already agreed to collect $47.9 million in revenue, then you're not agreeing to collect more. So I think that's why it's important. I think that's the difference between where it comes in the warrant, I think.
But then what is the means for cutting the budget in the general fund article?
Someone has to propose where it comes from.
So with the presentation of this article, does it then have to specify what's going to get cut in order to come up with the 120,000? Or it can't be that we just pass this without knowing where the cut's going to come from.
So the petitioner is expected to propose the motion as well. Generally, though, for Maynard town meeting, the motion is usually vote to move the article as written or something like that, right? It just says you just vote to move the article. And that might be the case in this. I think that was what the expectation was, because the petitions themselves didn't include a motion. So it could just be as simple as vote to approve the article as written. So I don't know. I don't know. The town, you're asking a question that the town moderator would, obviously that falls under his responsibility. So he would look probably to the petitioner to make a proposal. I really don't know. The select board is responsible for the budget. So maybe the select board would make a proposal, and I suspect they're going to look over the shoulder and look at me, and then I'm going to come up with something, which I don't have. So don't ask.
But we're voting.
I'm having a
part
hard.
of the article, or yeah, I mean, I think this has got to come from Lisa. How is this not? I mean, it can't be the only time this has come up. I mean, there's got to be a procedure for how to do this, and I can't just be that you get to claim 120 without saying where it comes from.
Right. I think that's a valid question, but if I was a town moderator, I would ask the petitioner.
But I guess the question is, how are we supposed to vote a recommendation and write comments if we don't know what's going to happen if this gets passed?
Well, even leaving
so-
that aside, it's what's going to happen at town meeting is the bigger deal. But I mean,
If passed at town meeting, the budget needs to be adjusted. That has to happen. So you either adjust your revenue or you adjust your expenses. I'm not trying, I know it sounds like I'm patronizing. I don't mean to be. I'm just trying to be kind of direct. So yeah.
But the means to do that is via a town meeting article.
Right.
That's how we're, passing all of the budget stuff. So I guess what I don't understand is how town council can say this article is appropriate without specifying what's going to get cut in order to fund it.
I mean, maybe she was expecting motions to come as well. I don't know.
Ken, go ahead. You had something.
Sorry, Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was interrupting you, so I'm sort of like Peter here, because I'm looking at both of these, and I'm like, so the 120, is an appropriation. So, we're supposed to help town meeting voters understand what the impact of passage of these are. And so, we've had instances before when somebody's come forward with a citizen's petition, which was not appropriately laid out. And
Right.
therefore it couldn't be, it had no impact. It couldn't, it wasn't anything more than advisory. And I'm thinking about, for example, the one about selling sewer capacity beyond our borders. So,
Right, I recall, and I expected, I'd be honest, I had the same understanding as all of you, not all of you, but those of you that I've heard from. It's where's the money coming from and what's it paying for? Like that's how the budget works.
So
So-
my first question is, if Lisa has looked at these and said, that these are, that these are appropriate to move forward to, to town meeting for a vote.
Right.
I mean, I get the fact that it's, citizen's petition, I guess anybody can bring forward a citizen petition. But, I think, if I were to venture a recommendation here, I'd say, okay, you've got an appropriation for $120,000 with no source for that for that revenue, other than taking it out from somewhere else and trying to do that on the floor of town meeting. I mean, who is it? I mean, it seems like that would be total confusion then, because at that point, somebody's going to have to sit there and say where it's going to come out of. And so, I would sit here and say, so we're going to appropriate $120,000 to the schools. Well, maybe we take that $120,000 out of the school budget. I mean, it's a total circuitous, there's no logic to this. So then the other one, and I realize we're not on BB, but
That's okay, I can bring it up.
we're sitting here saying appropriate to the schools in addition to the budget, the difference between an amount and the fiscal year 2023 budget appropriation to school.
This one I'm not entirely sure I understand, to be
Me
frank.
neither.
So I think what it's saying is, you're appropriating X amount. And so we ought to appropriate, the difference between that X amount and 22 in order to make the total $22,098,000.
But can I just say, do we think there's a typo in this? Is it supposed to be the two different amounts in there? So one's 22,098 and one is 22,028. Or do we think that $70,000 difference is something we're supposed to understand?
Oh, that's a good catch. That's probably a typo. Sorry.
Well,
All
so
right,
So my point is whatever that amount is, which is not an exact amount, and this is what I'm just having a hard time, believing that, that this is even actionable, because,
I know what you mean.
there's no exact money amount, to say nothing about, again, a funding source. And
Yeah, I know what you mean. So as a point of example, which you already pointed out, the earlier one, but just to kind of skip ahead a little bit, the one about the trash and recycling contracts, the town council, Lisa Mead, had found that one to be out of order because it doesn't abide by Chapter 30B procurement law. So in that case, it's probably like that's not legally enforceable.
So I guess this is what I'm looking for is, Lisa has reviewed these, correct?
Yep.
And she said that these can go forward and be placed on the warrant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, I
Yes.
believe even the trash one that she says is out of order is gonna be on the warrant because it was submitted and it was certified by the clerk, so it has to go on the warrant. But that one in particular is gonna go to the moderator to explain that it is out of order and it will not get a vote.
Correct.
Okay.
No, I think you're having a lot
All
of
right.
questions. I suspect.
I think I understand. I think I understand what, what our recommendation has to be here, because, this is, this is, it may not be out of order, but it's certainly, not an orderly way to put together a budget, but just upon one person's, one person's opinion on this.
And Greg, I'm sorry, but when you say Lisa reviewed these, and I don't mean to be so persnickety, but
That's all right.
she saw the text of this,
The
that
originals.
it has,
We
it's what we're
scanned.
looking at.
What you're looking at is a like Becky had the originals in front of her. She typed them in. She sent them over to Mr. Stone to make sure like they matched. But that's not even what I sent Lisa initially. I sent Lisa the draft warrants when it was all kind of typed up. But like the same day, the town clerk's office certified the signatures. I had a scanned copy. I sent those to Lisa, and she looked at those.
It's a handwritten of the actual submission with
Right.
the signatures, et cetera.
Correct.
But most specifically, she thought it was appropriate without a funding source, is the point I'm
No.
trying to get to.
Acceptable.
Right.
Acceptable. So
Well,
Not
Okay.
immediately out of order. It's not
Correct.
one where she can say you can't even discuss this. vote
Okay,
this, it
so
doesn't work.
that, I think that answers the question, so.
yeah, I'm sorry. I know this is confusing. And I also, you're only sort of like prepping for, I'm sure, the exact same conversation that's going to happen next Tuesday night.
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
select board meeting. So,
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so one more question. In citizens petitions, are they required to provide sponsors' comments? I don't think we could require citizens petition to provide sponsors' comments.
I mean, probably not. I don't know what the charter says about.
Oh,
sponsor.
that's a good question. Good clarification, Ken.
I don't know.
I mean.
But they
obviously-
are allowed a presentation, I believe.
No, I
That's up to the
understand that.
moderator.
I understand that, but I mean, I'm just, again, trying to be orderly about the process here.
Yeah,
And
no.
I didn't think that, a citizen's petition could require sponsors' comments. So it could go forward
Right.
without sponsors' comments.
It
It could go
may.
into the warrant without sponsors' comments.
Mhm.
And so, then town meeting voters can look at it in the context of no sponsors' comments. And then, a presentation gets made at town meeting, and, and then town meeting voters can decide.
I think the town moderator has set like expectations as to what the board sets like presentations, So, but I don't know what Dix wants to do this year. I don't know.
Okay. Any further discussion on those ones? There is.
Do we,
Yeah, go ahead.
if they both pass, so if they both pass, but I forget, the second one is a bump of like 400,000 or something, right?
Yeah, it's over 400,000.
So it would be 400,000 and then plus another 120.
Doesn't that one have a not to exceed though? It says that if the appropriation is already over that, then it doesn't go up. That's how I read it, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right, but I thought that was more if the general fund budget had been
Oh,
changed.
maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what it's referring to.
But maybe, yeah, you'd say this 120 counts towards, so if we did the general fund at 21.7 or whatever it is, plus 120, maybe the 120 subtracts out.
Well, you'd certainly
Okay,
want to,
interesting.
you would certainly want to do AA before BB, that's for sure. For that very reason,
Mhm.
because then you're calculating the difference.
Can I ask Greg, and, you know, I'm hesitant to want to spend, you know, our money on town council, but, I mean.
This is in the
would it make
retainer.
sense-
This is in the retainer. So
Okay.
she picks
Would
up
it
when I
make
call.
sense to ask Lisa to clarify? So, you know, on the most basic level, we passed the general fund budget, then we passed these two articles. Our budget is now out of balance by $500,000 or so. So we have to make some adjustments somewhere, which would generally be by town meeting article, but there's no article to do that. So what is the mechanism for how we reconcile that $500,000 deficit?
Yeah, I understand the question, and I will ask because that I need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because we're basically held hostage at ATM until we figure it out, I think.
Yeah, because I'm not
Like-
collecting enough in taxes to pay.
Right, right.
Exactly, yeah.
Wouldn't they have to reopen the budget article to do that? Because if there's no funding source for those articles, once we get to them, how can they even be voted? I'm confused with Lisa's determinations,
Yeah,
because I don't
I
understand
am
how we can
too.
even vote them if there's nothing, if there's no raise and appropriate left
right.
at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I wonder if Lisa knows that it's, I mean, it'd be one thing to say, let's give the schools 120,000 and I'm going to take it from the police department. That's totally legit and I can get that. But I don't get where the 120,000 comes from if we don't take it from somewhere.
Right, so do we have to scramble on town meeting floor to figure out where we're gonna cut, or, you
Right.
know?
Yes, as written, yes. That's what
Right.
we would have to do.
Because you can't just
But we-
easily increase your revenues, your
No.
local receipts or anything like that, because
No,
those all have to be within.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I mean.
right.
But to scramble on town meeting floor would require an article.
Mhm.
I mean, if we've
Right.
already passed the general budget, we don't have another article except
Right.
by like amending this one in order to do that.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I don't,
okay, but
I
you're
don't
gonna
even,
ask Lisa.
I don't even know that we would be able to raise revenues. How would you raise revenues and town meeting?
I guess an override.
An override is the only way I can
yeah.
think
How-
about it.
how-
Or that's
you-
the-
Can you do an override at town meeting? Can you?
I don't know.
No,
No, that's what my point is.
Right,
You
because
can
it has
start
to
it.
go to a ballot too. So
No,
Well,
no,
you
no. So
After
this, that part is, so that part is true. But I don't even know that you can put forward an override
I don't know.
from the floor at town meeting.
Oh, is
override
that
is
one of those
also-
ones that has to be, it has to have like a public hearing and it has to, like, there's
I don't know.
a set
Like a
thing that,
taking. I know what you mean.
that has to
That's-
happen before this is allowed.
Yeah, that sounds like a road acceptance for a taking. But this,
Yeah.
but an override also has to be very specific. So not only is Lori going to ask where that money is going to, but she's
Mhm.
asking because it has to go to the Department of Revenue, and they're going to ask very specifically what those expenses are going to, like to the cent, like what you're
Mhm.
paying for because of that.
But my point about then it having to go to a ballot would be our budget article is defunct until that ballot initiative also happens and gets passed. Because otherwise, and if that doesn't pass, then our
You'd have to
budget
have-
is
you'd have
still out
another-
of balance.
You'd have to have another town meeting.
You'd
Yeah.
have, see what I'm saying?
I guess so.
Because we wouldn't have a true budget. Yeah, we wouldn't have a legal budget to go into FY '23.
Or at least the article wouldn't be like,
I believe it has to be balanced to be legal, to be adopted.
okay. All right, so
I-
more
I
more
thi- I think-
questions.
I think the one point is, and I think this is what Peter was asking for, is the strict procedure going forward. You know, if these things are, if these things are passed, what would be the procedure going forward for doing that? Because, quite frankly, I'm hard pressed to think about where we'd pick up 400 and
Right.
some odd $1,000.
Yeah,
Take
that'd
it
be
out
quite
of,
fun.
take it out of FinCom salaries or something.
Yeah, the slush fund for the FinCom.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Shall we just look at the other couple citizens petitions? We touched on one of them. I thought I had it open. Hold on. The one, here we go. This is the one that town council advised will be out of order. As Greg mentioned, having to do with general procurement law and whatnot.
Right. So
Yeah.
procurement law, for those who, it's just how the state requires municipalities to procure, to contract or to acquire services or goods or supplies or designs or whatever the case may be. So, and it's very strict, and especially for a contract the size that we have with solid waste and recycling collection. So generally that would be a request for proposals process is conducted. You don't necessarily have to go through that strict of a process. You might be able to do an invitation for bids or etc. But in this would not be abiding by that. This would be to legally able to operate in the town, and legally able to operate in the town only means that they have the license to do so. So they have a permit to collect, which they do now. So whether you have Harvey, which is the majority of residents do, or households have, or you can get Waste Management or Republic or Trash Man, but any of those other vendors still have to have the permit to legally collect from town. And that's what this article is proposing, that if you have the legal means to operate, then the towns will pay for that. But those services aren't procured. Like, I do not procure for Waste Management, Republic, Trash Man, only for Harvey at this time.
So if you were to pay a bill for another trash collection service, you would have to go through this process of procurement to be able to do that. That's what you're saying.
Well, that's true. Also, I don't know enough about those other companies. So just the concept. So procurement is meant to provide best business practices. Like the law is set to protect people, provide fair wages, and to be as fair and equitable in the market as possible, and to incentivize like advantageous business practices and efficiencies, etc. So if it would be a good business practice to procure other services. So you would want to make sure that what they do with that trash is correct, how they collect it is correct, that it abides by a schedule and a routes. Like you would want, it's probably not impossible. I would imagine there might be some city or town that has more than one collection. I don't know who, but it might, if considering like Boston's huge, maybe they have more than one, but they procure those services.
Right, but private citizens can't just be like, this week I want Trash Man. So you have to deal with
but right
Trash Man.
now your taxes do go to that as well. So right now
right. No, obviously any citizen can go and get private trash collection.
Oh, but you can't
right.
but you cannot direct that portion of your tax bill that goes to that to another. And
Correct.
Mr. Sohn as Mr. Sohn has pointed out, like his disapproval of that, and that's a fair argument. That's right now we procure the services of Harvey.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's see, two more citizens petitions. This one, this is the recording of public meetings. Did I get that one right? Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, here we go.
So this one, town council had also found acceptable. I think, and this is, this would be up to the town, of course, if the town wanted to have this requirement for public meetings. As the town administrator, I advise on the budget and contract matters of the town on behalf of the select board. I will say my advice is that there's costs associated with this measure. So not budget breaking costs per se, but there would be costs if we are required to enforce and implement this. Only one room in town hall has audiovisual support for recordings of meetings, and that's the select board room. So we would have to increase our capabilities otherwise. Like we can have like the planning board right now puts a camera on the I don't know if you guys recall, but there's like a TV screen on the where the planning board meets groups. So like they threw a webcam on it and they can do that. So it's not great, but it might meet the requirements of this measure. But it would mean that all committees do. And so that would mean Recreation Commission, Library Trustees, School Committee, they would be required to record and then upload there. And right now we upload through WAVM. So Alana, I know you're familiar, but I'm just saying like if this meeting might be recorded, I think it is.
It is, yes.
So great. So
I said that at the beginning.
you did, and I clicked the got it. And anyways, so this then go, like what we, Alana knows this, but in the back,
Yes.
what people don't know is that we send this over and we kind of like notify WAVM that it's ready to upload it to YouTube, and that happens. So there's kind of a cost to that too, but it's not
right. And my thing is Zoom is easy enough. This records at the touch of a button, and like we said, we send it over to Mark over at WAVM. He puts it up on their website. That doesn't take an inordinate amount of time. But there are nights, and if we all go back to in-person meetings at some point, there are nights, there are 3 meetings happening at town hall. It could be, FinCom, bylaw, and who else meets on Monday? I can't remember, but, and like you said, there's only one room that's equipped for that. And not only that, when we do record from the select board room, we do it with the help of WAVM students.
That's right. I can't do
who
it.
come at night on school nights to do that for us.
Yeah.
So if we're asking them to then do that Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night in multiple rooms,
right?
That's a lot of student.
Right.
That's a lot of equipment. That's a lot of their time. I think we're going to end up having to pay professionals or something. And that's more money than I think I think you were saying it's not budget breaking, but if it's the kind of thing where we need to hire film crews or something, the way that, WAVM knows what they're doing, they're fantastic. But they're high school students on their school nights doing the select board meeting for us. At least
I concur with this. So this would require every single meeting to be recorded.
Every publicly posted meeting. Yes.
So to Alana's point, this would require an inordinate amount of extra help. I'm also wondering, how long do we have to store these for? So how much, much storage media are we going to have in order to store every meeting of every committee for every month of every year?
That's a good question.
That's a
I
very
don't
good
know.
point.
So what you're referring to is what's called the retention schedule. So every municipality is required to have records, so public records, and there's a retention schedule that the records access officer is responsible for enforcing. I'm getting too jargony, I'm sorry y'all, but like basically our town clerk is our records access officer, and that's why you have to send postings and minutes to her. So if she keeps minutes I think indefinitely. I think minutes might be one of those where you just keep forever. I'm not sure. But other things like contracts, you got to keep for 6 years, etc. So everything has like an assigned timetable you got to keep to it. So I don't know if recordings. I don't know. Recordings is such like a novel concept in government. So I don't even know.
Could you put the petition back up, Alana?
Sure. Sorry, 1 second.
Should I just throw out my point?
Yeah,
while
go
we're-
ahead. I'm sorry. I'll get it right back. I must
No,
have
that's
closed the
fine.
window.
The other aspect we should consider is, I'm not clear, so if the technology fails, does that mean we have to end the meeting? And,
Oh, that's a very
or-
good point.
so I mean, we're fairly clear on the Zoom stuff that we're not going to end the meeting. And
Right.
so it would just be if, if something goes wrong, does that mean, yeah, we have to end the meeting or can't have the meeting? If we don't post it properly, clearly we cannot have the meeting. And I just don't know if this falls into that category.
Jesus.
That's a very good point. Bylaw. Public meetings, here it is, sorry. There we go.
So I'm looking at so the meeting chair shall have the responsibility to ensure its compliance with this bylaw. So if a meeting chair doesn't ensure compliance with the bylaw, what's the impact? Because it sure would make me very reluctant to be a chair of any committee.
It is a little bit of an additional responsibility, for
It's
sure.
not just a responsibility. I mean, I don't know what the enforcement is there.
Right,
Is there some law that says that, not following a bylaw is punishable by, 15 years in prison and a $10,000 fine? I mean, I don't
Right.
know what this is.
Mhm.
Jesus. Honestly.
All right, any more questions or discussion on this? And we just have one more citizens petition. No. And this one, we have had a little bit of discussion on it already, so. But just again, this is the final citizens petition is the Maynard Climate Emergency Declaration, which we did talk briefly with Green Maynard about. Not sure if anyone had any additional questions or comments on this one.
I confess that I'm still, I'm still somewhat confused as to what we're trying to accomplish here. The select board's, suggesting being, is supposed to charge this sustainability committee with producing a climate action plan, which if they were so motivated, obviously they could do on their own. studying, making recommendations for specific strategies.
Mhm.
They could provide the plan to the select board annually. I guess there's a requirement that they report the town's progress towards these goals.
I see Mr. Stillwater's hand up. If you want, you can have a couple minutes. You're from, are you on the Sustainability Committee, Mr. Stillwater?
I'm not on the Sustainability Committee. And, you're quite right that they could just go ahead and do this. I think the goal here is to in part mobilize the community, indicate that the community is strongly behind addressing climate concerns. One of the things, there was a second bylaw that had been proposed for a sustainability director here for this. And it was because we got informal feedback that the FinCom would likely oppose that we decided we'd drop that one. But we are certainly interested in moving forward on climate change. One of the associated questions that I had tonight before I quit is just to ask, I'm putting together the on a group putting together the global the greenhouse gas inventory, and as part of that I'm looking at the actions that the town has taken, and one of the questions that came up was, has the town spent money on climate related issues? And I could see the solar field, but that was done by a contractor. I saw 1.2 million in financing coming in from green communities. I saw the monies for the charging points done by a grant. Has the town spent any money directly on climate related things? And these two things may seem like they're discrete, but they're actually, this bylaw is trying to get a feeling, and I believe it's going to pass overwhelmingly, because I think the sentiment is that we need to do something about the climate. And so understanding what the town has already done is also important here. Can somebody help me understand that?
So your question is whether or not the town has spent money on capital or programs that are directly related to helping sustainability and climate change. For example, something like solar panels.
Yeah.
So
Or have
I
we
just
done
wanna
all of
clarify
that with grants?
any of those examples cost money. It costs the salaries of myself and Justin DeMarco and a number of staff to go through the more than a year's worth of negotiations to even try to get solar panels at the school facilities. It took the salaries of myself and Justin DeMarco and DPW staff to install and contract and manage all the contracts for the installation of the electrical vehicle charging stations across town. There are costs to all of these that the good taxpayers of Maynard have been paying for a long time. In
Well,
consideration,
you also got $75,000 a year in electrical money coming back from the contractor, right? So,
that
it's
covers
more
the
than
costs
offset.
of, it offsets the energy costs to maintain the buildings.
Yeah, but that's coming back to the town. It's coming in. It's money you don't have to spend. So, there was a net gain there somehow
And that
for the
money
town.
then probably went to the other needs of the departments.
Yeah, but not to climate change.
Well, it offset our energy costs so that we aren't purchasing electricity from coal burning plants. We're getting it from our solar panels. Isn't
Yeah,
that the purpose of solar panels?
okay. But you get what I'm asking. You know,
I
have you?
don't frankly, because when the opportunity presents itself and we have the means, we do pursue. And I don't think you believe me, Mr. Stillwater, but I'm telling you that I am abiding by the master plan goal of seeking every and opportunity for sustainability and efficiency means,
I
including.
do believe you. I
I know, but
definitely
it's-
believe you.
I know that it may seem minor. We do have one. I know it seems minor because I'm only one, but it is one electrical vehicle that we do have in our fleet. It is electrical charging stations that we have across the town now. Those are not insignificant means towards that. The town is only limited by the resources that we have. We have a very old infrastructure, and our buildings are old. So we cannot control private. We can only have an influence over the municipal resources that we have. And I feel like you're going to be frustrated if we continue to do more efficiency purposes for town hall and the library and the schools. I don't think it's going to be enough to meet your means.
But it's a good thing, and I'm in favor of it. Ken, did I address your concerns?
Yes, you helped me understand a little bit more where you're coming from.
All right. Thank you very much tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. And right, and to also just answer your question a little bit more, or follow up with what Greg said, it is hard to see some of the expenses. We don't say, well, 10 hours in this month from Megan Zamuto went to climate change. Like, that's not something we track, unfortunately. So we don't have like hard numbers for you on that answer. But staff time is certainly a significant portion of what we have done. And I know the police chief, I think his next cruiser is hybrid, right, Greg? So there's that. So that's good.
Do you have any other hybrid vehicles?
Does the town own any other hybrids? I don't believe so.
No, we do
Unfortunately,
not.
a lot of our vehicles are like
Diesel.
DPW trucks and pumper trucks and things that don't really commercially are available in electric yet.
And the cruisers. So the
cruisers. And so we're getting one that's hybrid. This is the first time. And I know the chief had done some due diligence on contacting other departments to make sure, how it was working out for them. And he's considering an all electric in the future as well, but we're starting with the hybrid.
Correct.
Have we finished our discussion of the citizens petitions? Are we ready to go on with our other business, or are we still?
Can I just say
considering-
something?
Kevin, you can have, a minute, and then we got to move
Yes.
on.
Just in response to all these funding questions. First off, the town charter exempts citizen petitions from specifying a funding source. So they have to go forward even if there's not a funding source specified. And then second, I see there's 4 possibilities to fund these citizen initiatives should they pass. The first one is the select board can always call a special town meeting and propose a new budget incorporating these citizens initiatives. Second, there's always Proposition 2.5 override, again, within the select board's purview. Third is a reserve fund transfer. Now, maybe not all the citizen petitions would qualify, but I believe the COVID one for the COVID funding for the lost revenue would qualify as an emergency under the guidelines of our financial manual. And then fourth, even if it doesn't qualify as an emergency, according to our financial policy manual, and I'm quoting directly here, language restricting withdrawals from the general stabilization fund can be waived upon written request of the town administrator, followed by a majority vote of the selectmen. In accordance with Massachusetts general law, withdrawals from the general stabilization fund will only be made on 2/3 vote of town meeting. So there are 4 options, and the select board really has the discretion to pick any of them to adhere to the will of the citizens petitions, should they pass.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. So let me pull up our document with the comments that we have so far and see. Or maybe I'll, yeah, let's do that. And we can do some voting and looking over some of these comments, and then we can go through the list that we have and continue with assigning and see how we feel about, you know, which ones we want to vote on tonight that we've gone through. So we'll just go alphabetical. So draft control F, the sewer enterprise fund budget, we talked about with Justin DeMarco. And here are the comments. I will need to fill in the article number of for whatever the general fund budget is going to be, because we don't have that yet. But other than that, this is what is proposed for comments. Do we have any questions or thoughts on what was written? Or I guess.
Can you make it bigger,
Sure.
please? Thank you. I'm on my laptop screen, so it's kind of small for me.
No, that's not it. Where?
Lana, down on the lower right, you should be able to click the little plus.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Sorry. I'm more of a Google person than a Docs person. How is that? Is that big enough, Jill? Or do you want to
Perfect,
look?
thank you.
Okay. So do we feel comfortable moving forward with voting a recommendation for draft control F this evening and then moving this comment along?
I make a motion that we recommend draft control F.
Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
All right. I will do any further discussion before we do a vote. Okay, then I'll move to a roll call vote. Jill? Didn't hear
Yes.
you, Jill. Yes?
Yes,
Ah, there we go. Sorry.
did you hear me?
Yeah, hear you now. Danielle?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Elliot?
Yep.
Peter?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay. And then, are there any changes to these comments that anyone would like to propose? All right. Sorry, you'll have to raise your hand or talk because I can't see everyone's nodding. So draft control G is water enterprise fund budget. Again, something we chatted about with Justin DeMarco. And I will entertain a motion to vote our recommendation of this draft control.
I'll make a motion that we recommend draft control G.
Do I have a second?
This is Peter. I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, then I will move to the roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Jillian,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And does anyone have any thoughts on these comments? Or if once, you know, I have the article number, I will put that in, but otherwise. Okay. I'll move on to draft control H. Sorry, this is split a little bit on this page. This is the,
If you click the gray line, it'll go together.
click.
See how it changes? Now double click.
Oh, gosh, I'm learning. Thanks, guys. All right. So this is the Community Preservation Reserve Fund appropriations. The CPC did change their comments slightly. I believe I have the updated one on board docs. This is H. I did go to their meeting after we had spoken to their representatives. And they had asked, I think we talked about putting in some notes about the bigger ticket items, the Keenan softball fence and the preservation of digitization of historic town records project. So that's why I mean, I didn't think I needed to call out every project because they did a pretty good job with their comments. So if we feel okay voting on draft control H, I will entertain a motion and then
Make a motion that we recommend draft control H.
do I have a second?
This is Peter, I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Then we'll do a roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
and I am a yes as well. Do we have any suggestions, changes for these comments? Okay.
Did we want to put anything in there about the capital expenses or like, I mean, I know this is like completely separate, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe like a sentence about how, you know, these things can pay. I don't know how, but I know we had a really good discussion about like, you know, what the difference, like people have to apply for these funds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's like something we should make clear, like, because we have talked in the past, I think, to the town about the capital planning and, you know, sort of the list and how things get on the list and the order and priority.
Okay.
And I like, maybe it's clear to the town people that this is completely different because it's a different fund.
I wouldn't
Like,
assume
but
that.
I really like your first sentence, like talking about how like, you know, where this money comes from and like what, like it has to be appropriated from this place.
Mm-hmm. I could certainly add
Maybe
a
it's in a
sentence.
sponsor comment or it's clear, but
Something like the projects are brought forth. Why doesn't this? Oh, it doesn't want me to do it right in there, but I can do it. Something like the projects are brought forth to the CPC from various town departments and citizens. Something like that.
And like, I know we talked about like, there were certain things we wanted to potentially add on to that list or we recommended, but they said, you know, we take our things starting on this cycle, like, you know, maybe the sentence could end with something like, you know, and this cycle begins in whatever month, I can't remember, sorry.
Oh, right. So according to the CPC funding cycle. Beginning.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like over the top for what our comments need to be, but I think it's, you know, something we've talked about in the past.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good addition. So the projects are brought forth to the CPC from various town departments and citizens according to the CPC funding cycle beginning in the fall. How's that?
Sounds lovely.
Okay. Any other changes or additional comments for this one? Okay. And moving on. Draft control I, this was their budget for the year. Passing 400,000, which is up for them, but through estimating, that seemed like it's entirely doable for what they bring in. So good for them. They'll be less than the undesignated. So could I entertain a motion to recommend draft control I?
I will.
We'll make them, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go
Ellie.
ahead, Elliot, you started.
I'll recommend to approve draft control I.
I will
Do I have a
second
second?
that motion.
Okay, excellent. Any further discussion?
So just to be clear, you
Okay.
know, we're not recommending approval, we're voting to recommend, so.
Voted to recommend. That's what I meant
Yeah.
to do.
Minor point, but
Yeah.
an important point.
No, we want to be official here. All right, any further discussion? Then I will call for a roll call vote to recommend draft control I. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Are there
And
any?
perhaps this might
Mhm.
be, sorry to interrupt, perhaps
No, go ahead.
this one might be better to put that sentence you just made rather than the one from before. I don't think it matters, but
Yeah, sure.
Since this is where the appropriations actually are.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So right at the end, probably then. The projects are brought.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Will do. Control I. Any other comments on this one? Okay. Then we have draft control N, which we touched on a little bit tonight, leasing authorization through ambulance receipts fund appropriation for the fire department. This is the one for the truck. I will entertain a motion to recommend.
I'll make a motion to recommend draft control N.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Then I will do a roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Do we have any comments on, any corrections, changes to the comments?
I guess just fulfill in the second to last line has 2 L's at the end. Minor point.
Okay, yep, fix that. I kind of like the, what we citizens would probably refer to as a fire truck. It's kind of-
So do we know, remind me what the lease is, how the length of the lease?
This was a 7-year.
And so is this I'm gonna have to pull it up. Is this a lease authorization with a specific amount? Or just an authorization to pay it through ambulance receipts?
It had a specific amount. It was 118,000.
We probably ought to put the specific amount
But the specific
as well as the
Yeah.
amount for out years.
Well, the years, he did have the years down at the bottom. It said for 7 years, but
Is that in the, is that in the sponsors comments?
yeah,
Okay.
it's in
then
our
that-
comments.
that is-
This authorization will be for 1 year with the intention to continue funding this lease purchase for a total of 7 years.
No, I saw that. I
Oh,
guess what
okay.
I was saying is the amount in the sponsors comments?
Good question. Mhm. Let me look. Draft control N. No, the amount is not in the sponsor comments. It talks about 7 year, it talks about the truck and, you know, so we can definitely put
Yeah, I
the
mean,
amount in ours.
just to the extent possible, telling
Yep.
people how much the expenditure is. And if it, I mean, as a general rule, if it's in the sponsors comments, we don't have to repeat it.
Right,
But, you know, if it's not there, so.
agreed. Yep, we can put that in. Before I go back to sharing, do we need to, Greg and Lori, do you want to, are you going to hang out in case we have more questions while we go through the voting, or would FinCom be all right letting our town
It's
staff
up to
go?
you. It's up to you. If you want me to hang out, I will.
What a team player. Thank you, Lori. No, I was waiting in case there was questions, but y'all seem to be kind of just hashing out the details of. It's important stuff, but you're
Yeah.
right. I'm not contributing, and I don't think
I-
Lori is.
Yeah, I think we're just going through voting, so I think that would be all right. I know it's getting late. Unless there are any objections.
No, no objections. Thank you for
No.
being here.
Good.
Thank you
place.
for being
Yeah,
here. Thank you for help.
being here.
You're
We
very
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.
Good work, y'all.
Okay. All right, so. Sorry, remind me, Katie, did we vote on draft control N yet? We,
We
Yes,
voted
we
on
did.
N and O is new.
okay, so we voted N.
Yep.
And then we made the comment, we're gonna add the amount into those control, okay.
Yes.
So moving on to draft control O, This is the Community Preservation Fund closeout of undesignated fund balance. So they're taking their undesignated amount and putting it into the respective reserve fund pockets.
I'll make a motion that we recommend draft control O.
Okay,
I
do
will
I have a
second
second?
that motion.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Then I will call for a roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Danielle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Are there any changes, comments, additions to this comment? Okay. Then we have comments for draft control S. This is the golf course receipts. Do we have a motion to recommend?
Make a motion that we recommend draft control S.
Okay. And a second?
I will second that motion. Is this the one I did? I think it is. Anyway, I'm just excited to see my first one on there.
I'm so excited for you.
But yes, I motioned a second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
You know, it does make you lose a little credibility. You don't remember your own writing.
That's true. It was late. It was late at night. when I did it.
All right, I will do a roll call vote to recommend. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Are there any changes to the comments? I would say my only change would be the second to last sentence, structural support of the Maynard golf course clubhouse facility. It's not, this isn't for like the
Ah.
golf course itself.
Okay. Yep.
I'll just change that. I don't want people to think it, it's not going toward turf or anything.
Right.
All right. And then we have our other ambulance receipt transfer. Do I have a motion to recommend draft control T?
I'll recommend that we, what was the phrase?
Make a motion that we recommend.
That we recommend draft control T.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Peter.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Any additions or changes to these comments? All right. I believe that's all we had for written comments, unless I missed any. Did anyone send me comments that we didn't go over, that I didn't end up getting into that document? Okay. So,
So
Let-
you
Mhm.
sent out a list.
yeah, I was
that
gonna pull that
goes-
up.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we can go through. Because I think we can do some more if you I know we're getting a little bit late, but let's have a little talk about what we want to do from here and our next couple of meetings and see. Where did that go? Thought I had it open. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So we just voted.
You voted,
Remember what it is.
you voted FGH,
FGHI.
yeah. And NOST.
Okay.
Not that I was taking notes.
Yeah. No, I forgot. Okay. So,
So there's no more K, correct?
correct.
Okay.
That is gone.
All right, and then is there, I know Y and Z are, oh, there we are, okay.
Yeah. So these are our 5 citizens petitions. So we have, I guess we can continue on with some voting tonight and then assign the comments to be written. And then know that we got the voting out of the way, which, you know, is something that definitely has to happen before the warrant is printed.
We could probably do C.
Yeah, we
So
can do
so I
some
make
of the
a
ones
mo-
we talked about tonight.
I'll make a motion that we recommend draft control C, which is the authorized result of revolving funds.
I'll second that, Peter.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, then I will do a roll call vote. Ken,
Yep.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
Jillian,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Can we assign someone to write the comments for that one?
I'll take C.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Do we want to
I think
move
we
down
could,
the list?
we
Go
could,
with-
we could probably vote on E.
Yeah, do we think we need more time on the general fund budget article? D?
D or E, did you say?
D.
Well,
D. Okay.
I don't,
Yeah.
just because I don't think Greg's gonna change this article before. You know, I don't think this one's gonna continue evolving, so.
All right, I'll make a motion that we recommend draft control D. Town budget.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
Danielle seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, then we'll do a roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
Elliot,
Sorry, which is the one with the 1.5 million? Is that J or is that D?
that's J, that's the certified pre-cash.
Or this is D? Yeah. then
This is
yes.
D, the general fund. Okay, you're a yes. I am a yes as well. I think it's sort of customary for the chair to do the general fund budget comments. I'm happy to do that. Unless anyone else is dying to do it.
No, I think it's chair.
Yeah, that's kind of a chair one. All right, then the next one, Control E, the petition for the police details to go from 65 to 70, which we talked to the police chief about. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we recommend draft Control E.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? And we will do a roll call vote. Ken,
Yep.
Peter,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yeah.
Katie,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yep.
and I'm a yes as well.
And so I have this one for the
Yep.
comments.
All right, and then the next one that we haven't done is J. Elliot, did you have concerns or more thoughts on J?
Yeah, I'm pretty concerned with the level of, I didn't realize it before, how much is owed for the pension liability. I spend a lot of time looking at the financials of public companies, and it's a real liability, like that has to be paid out. So for that to be on our books, and especially, I mean, if it's underfunded, that 70 is going to grow faster than whatever the number that's going to fund it is. So that it's going to be like trying to, it's like a trade deficit. The trade deficit shrinks. It has to be addressed at some point. And if we've got a year where we've got an extra 1.5 million cash hanging around, it seems like a really good opportunity to think harder about if there can be more earmarked towards that.
Yeah, I would say that this is a larger issue. So while I agree with you, Elliot, I mean, Maynard is actually doing more than many towns are. I think there's also sort of an understanding that, you make progress on this, and I think you're right. Even a moderate amount of progress isn't necessarily going to fix the problem. So, having said that, I'm not ready to vote on a J either. So, I think that there are plenty of issues there.
Yeah, I see
Okay.
your point. It is a drop in the bucket, but if you don't start putting drops in the bucket, it's going to just going to be unreasonable to address it at some point down the road. And given we might not be around to see it, it'll be there.
Right, and I also want to say, there's no reason that we all need to have unanimous votes on articles, and certainly in our comments, we can put forth concerns and the fact that it wasn't a unanimous vote, and that, here's what we discussed. I think that's perfectly, a good way to go about this as well,
So I think, I guess I would throw out the fact that many of the ones that we voted on, we've seen at previous meetings. This one was still, introduced this evening. And so, as I said, I think.
Yeah, we can hold off a vote on this one till next time. That's perfect. Yeah. Totally get that. I don't want, anyone to think, if you do not feel that any of these are, something that you want to vote for as a citizen, then by all means, we certainly don't have to be unanimous on all of these. So yeah, we can hold off on voting for a J, since it was our first discussion of it tonight, and it's a large, sum, and we might want some more time to think about that one.
Is J assigned to anybody?
Nope. Do we want to make an assignment for comments, or do we want to wait and see until we have a better understanding of the voting for the recommendation? I don't know. Elliot, do you want to write comments for it?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
go
sure.
for it.
We may want to wait to see if he's in the majority, whatever recommendation we make.
That seems valid as
Can
well.
I just comment on the OPEB stuff though?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Peter.
So, Elliot, I can't say I'm any expert, and I would certainly invite you to, talk to whoever, and, I'm sure Mass Municipal Association has loads of documents on it, but, and maybe it would be instructive to look at the, yearly audits and see what the auditors are saying, is because I think they're the only ones who do a calculation right now of what the liability is, but I'm pretty sure we're not adding to it though, that the amounts we're setting aside for current employee health insurance, I think, and again, I'm not positive, but I think is adequate to fund the whole thing. It's, more about health insurance from prior employees.
So are current
and
employees
then-
no longer eligible? Did they
I
freeze
think
it?
they're eligible, but I think we're deferring enough money now that we're not adding to a liability. I'm not positive.
Maybe.
So
I definitely would like to hear that from Greg.
yeah,
Okay.
although
You know
I
what?
think it may
Pursued
be
it
a little
earlier.
beyond Greg too.
Yeah.
I'll
But
make
the
a
other
note.
aspect though is we are so there is also, and it's actually a much larger liability, although we've paid a lot of it off, is the pension liability. And that is mandated by state law that again, they push it back a few years every now and then, but I believe it's 2030 or so, that we're making additional payments into the pension fund to make up for the liability for that. And then once that's paid off, we would have that source of money. I mean, that's the thinking had always been you then redirect that money to the OPEB liability. So it's not that we don't, there is some thought of where that money can come from in the future. So, and then actually, as Ken said, I think we're actually ahead of the game compared to other towns.
Yeah.
Addressing this.
I think what would be
But
good.
again, you should reach out and talk to, I don't know who, maybe
Well,
Maynard Retirement Board or something,
yeah.
but sorry, Alana, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what I can do, after ATM and sort of before we start talking STM, we usually have a little bit of time that isn't jam-packed. So discussion of our audit report and our OPEB situation might be a good time to do that. So I'll make a note of that for agenda item. Before we continue with voting, it's 10 of 10. And I'm wondering if we should discuss if we believe we can get the rest of the voting and the comments done in one meeting, or if we need to add a meeting April 4th. Because I'm sure people are starting to get a little tired and, So our next meeting is April 11th. And our comments, in order to be put in the printed warrant, are due the 12th, so the next day. We certainly don't have to have all of our comments done before the printed warrant. We have to have all our voting done, I believe.
We don't, but
No? Okay. Okay.
I mean, ideally we do. But
Right.
same
I mean,
comments.
yeah. I certainly would like to, if possible, because I just, it's less paper, it's less confusion, it's less whatever at town meeting. So if at all possible, I would like to have them to Becky, but we do still have quite a bit to go to vote and write comments on. So
I am open for a meeting on the 4th if that's
Okay.
needed.
And just to refresh, are we supposed to also make recommendations and comments on the citizen positions?
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
so, so I'm open on the 4th as well. I guess just to, throw out an idea for the, we could certainly get through probably a few more. I mean, it looks like L and maybe M. We've already voted on N. So L, M, and
Yeah.
P, I guess at least.
yeah, we
But-
could, but if you're amenable to meeting on the 4th, then I would say, we'll just take up the rest on the 4th, and the 11th will be finishing up comments, or if we need anyone else to come in to talk, if there's any,
Well,
if
Yeah,
we need
I
to.
think, I think we ought to assign who's going to do what, which ones, including the citizens petition.
Okay,
I,
comments.
frankly, I'm still a little baffled by AA and BB in terms of,
mhm,
what we would do and what our options are. I think, Kevin outlined, some of the options from a financing perspective, which is fine. I guess I'd also like to hear from Lisa on that.
right. So we may have some clarification by the 4th, but we may not until possibly the 11th, depending on when Greg hears back, and, we can invite him back. if we
Yeah,
think we-
and I mean, those are also ones that we can make a recommendation after the, the printed, article, but
Yeah,
my point is it would probably be good to get, these sort of divvied out to,
mhm. Is there any members that cannot meet on the 4th?
I
Okay.
think I
Oh.
can meet on the 4th.
You think you can?
I don't think I can.
Oh, you don't think you can? Okay. Shall we go ahead with the rest of the committee, or do we want to? Is it important to have these votes for, all of us present?
I mean, probably don't vote on J that day.
Yeah.
Leave it to
Maybe
11.
Elliot,
or maybe we do.
but if Elliot wanted to ask that, some of them be held to the 11th,
Mhm.
I would certainly think that, that we could maybe accommodate that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I would say we should go ahead with the 4th and the 11th
Okay. I think that's a good
Fine.
idea.
nation.
Yeah, because it is a good amount of work. All right, so with that being said, then I think it's, let's go through and assign some more comment writing so that we can have some more done by the 4th and the 11th.
Well, so, Alana P, you could probably just take from a previous one. That's pretty standard, standard one, so you don't really have to sign that one out.
Yeah, that's easy.
I'm not at all familiar with L and M, so, maybe somebody else.
Peter, you're on the Charter Review Committee. Do you want to do L?
Sure.
Okay.
Although I didn't do the ones that were already assigned to me, so.
Yeah,
we'll
you
see where
gotta get
that
on
goes,
that.
but-
Well,
Yeah.
all the more reason why you should do them then.
We got plenty more, don't worry. I know that,
I haven't done mine either.
yeah. I think Katie was itching to
What?
do some more.
Yeah, bring one on.
All right, which ones would you like? We have M, which is the new bylaw, water resource management. That one shouldn't be too hard. It's basically like, we're doing this because this follows like new state law.
I can do it. I got
And
it.
Justin is great. If you have any questions, you know, and you want to email him, and he's really responsive. All right.
Well, she could do V then too.
Can I do V?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
wanna do
Danielle,
V,
boy,
Danielle?
Danielle, what?
I want to do V.
You want to do V? Okay, fine. No problem. Katie, why don't you do U then? Because again, the prior year's bills, it was a DPW bill. So if you had any,
Yeah, that one's easy.
okay. All right.
Just throw someone under the bus.
Jillian, you want to do some citizens petitions?
Sure. I mean, I'm not on the list for anything yet.
I know,
so
that's what I was
I
thinking.
figure I gotta do something here.
Okay. Do you want to take the climate Green
Thanks.
Maynard one?
I think she's gonna go right down the line. X, Y, Z, A, A, B, B.
If you want me to, do we have any like contact information for the people that wrote these? Like, are the people who wrote some of the newer ones gonna come and talk to us, or?
Well, Kevin was here
wait.
Because I know
tonight.
we have Green Maynard.
I'm
Kev,
still
yep.
here.
Yeah.
So-
So I
so-
can give you,
But we
I
haven't
believe I have,
voted on these, right?
no, we haven't.
You don't know what to write for the recommendation.
Well, we don't even know
Nope.
if we're gonna recommend.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant, but yeah.
Right. So
You don't know what to write because we
yeah,
haven't voted.
you may want to hold off until the 4th. We'll
Okay,
put
yeah,
you-
so I'll wait until after the. 4th.
Yeah, we'll put you on tap for it, but I think we'll have some more discussion and then. Yeah,
right.
hopefully we'll get some more contact from Lisa Mead as well. Okay,
Are we done?
that was a long meeting, y'all. Appreciate everyone's work and thank you for adding an additional meeting, and hopefully we will get this all done and then, you know, move on to our other jobs after ATM is over.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to
I
adjourn.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I will
Second.
second that motion.
Okay, roll call, Danielle,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Ken,
Yep.
Elliot,
Yep.
Jillian,
Yeah.
and I am a yes as well. Thank you all so much. I will
Good night,
send out the
everybody.
list in case you need to remember which ones to do.
That'd be great.
And
Okay.
randomly,
Yeah.
will we go over the 2 minutes next meeting on the 4th? The minutes.
Oh my gosh.
We're already
I
adjourned.
remembered.
I
Only
know, we're
because I
already
typed
Keep
them
me
up.
adjourned.
honest.
We adjourned, but let's do that. Let's add that to an agenda item next time.
Thank you for the reminder, Katie. My gosh. Yes, we will. Thank you.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night, guys.
Bye.